Happy to have you. So we will start off with everybody's favorite energy topic.
Yes.
Data centers. So Virginia is trying to attract massive data center investment while also promising to rein in on consumer energy costs. But in your opinion, where is that balance most at risk right now? Like, are we talking generation, transmission, rate design, or something else, and why?
Kind of a little bit of all of the above. But one thing that's very important was always to create the balance with data centers. We want them, they are a huge economic driver in Virginia. Obviously, we want to win the AI race in this nation, and it's a national security issue. And Virginia has always been the data center capital of the world. 70% of all data center traffic in the world comes through Virginia. Internet traffic in the world comes through Virginia. But we need to make sure that the data centers carry their own weight. And there was a recent JLARC study a couple years ago that said they were. Under the Youngkin administration, we had the conversations of, look, we want to grow this, but they have to come and carry the weight of the cost of that new generation. And we even formed something called the Governor's Collaborative. It's the PJM states. And we came together recently working with the White House on a set of principles that came out that said data centers need to hopefully bring their own power generation. If they don't bring their own power generation, PJM will basically procure the power generation. The cost will then be assigned to the data center. So under the Youngkin administration, we've always been very concerned to make sure that we're able to meet that balance. We want to continue being the preeminent place for data centers. We want the economic growth in our localities, but we also want to hold the ratepayers harmless for that growth in generation costs. And I think we've done a great job with it.
And if we were to get that balance wrong, moving forward, who pays for it, or who do you think should pay for it?
It depends on which way we get it wrong, right? So if the new administration doesn't hold data centers accountable to carry their weight, the ratepayers, you, I, and the other residential owners pay for it. If we get it wrong in the other direction and basically force data centers out of Virginia, then citizens in localities pay for it. I mean, we have localities where 40% of their property taxes come from data centers. I mean, imagine what your house property tax bill would be in these localities without the data center. And then also imagine a locality in Southwest Virginia or Central Virginia where if they had one data center would change quality of life overnight. I mean, new schools, new roads, what it would do. So it's very important we get it right in the middle with equilibrium, because either way is going to harm Virginians.
And speaking of that risk, that balance, what is the single policy change this year that's been on your mind that would actually reduce that risk and not just study it?
Well, I mean, obviously, you see a lot of anti-data center bills, right? The moratorium stuff out there. And they have to be careful. I mean, Virginia doesn't exist in a vacuum. If Virginia literally goes out there and says, we don't want more data centers and we're going to make it hard to come here, there are a number of states right now that are just licking their lips, waiting for Virginia to shut down data centers in Virginia because they're ready to welcome them. I mean, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, I mean, you talk to these states and they're watching Virginia because they're ready to strike and take that opportunity if Virginia's going to push them out the door.
And looking at the current General Assembly and new leadership, what is one energy policy decision in the next year that you think will matter most for consumers, even if it's not getting the most headlines right now?
So, and it has been discussed in the past. It may not be on the table right now. Well, we'll go with one that is on the table, RGGI. I mean, so the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. This is something that the last Democratic governor put Virginia in. And 2021 to 2023. Over $800 million in penalties were passed to ratepayers. Everyone's bills went up to cover that $800 million. It's not speculative. It's exactly what happened. By the way, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative was meant to actually lower carbon dioxide emissions. In reality, my team did the analysis. It increased carbon dioxide emissions by over 2 billion pounds compared to not being in RGGI. And the reason why, and Dominion will tell you this, Dominion stopped using their natural gas plants as much in Virginia and used their coal plants in West Virginia more often. We all know the difference in emissions between natural gas and coal. And last time I checked, we don't have a bubble over Virginia. So we don't have to speculate what will happen. We have empirical evidence, and we know for certain that Virginia going back in RGGI will cost Virginians $500 million a year every year we're in there. You want to make our bills stay down? Keep us out of RGGI.
And how do you kind of balance the concerns, environmental concerns, pollution concerns that people have in communities about greenhouse gases in kind of thinking that long-term, investment, that long-term risk that people think about?
Sure, we're going increasingly clean. Virginia's using more solar today. Even under Youngkin, we put more solar out there. We're going down the path of SMRs. Natural gas is becoming cleaner. If we spent as much time banning stuff and put that time into helping these technologies become cleaner, we'd actually have the best of both worlds. We'd have plenty of power and cleaner emissions. But instead, the legislature back in 2020 decided, no, we're just going to ban it. I mean, Virginia right now is sitting on state code that says in 2045, all natural gas emissions will become, or all natural gas power generation will be zero in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And in Dominion and APCO territory, 2050. And just to kind of put this on where we are, 55% of all of our power today in Virginia is natural gas. So you think that this scares us as residents? Imagine a company coming here and you're trying to get them to come to Virginia and create thousands of new jobs, and the first thing out of your mouth is, oh, by the way, we might lose 55% of all of our power in 20 years. It doesn't go over very well.
And I mean, that's something that's a major divide in the energy space, right? Fossil fuels. And you've described previously your philosophy as an all-of-the-above approach. But as Virginia scales up to meet that AI-driven demand and data center growth, what are the conditions that you imagine, or the specific conditions that would have to happen where you would think fossil fuels stop being a default option or it becomes something that the state actively moves away from?
Well, I mean, once again, I think we have to understand, the fossil fuels themselves are not the harm, right? I mean, people want to say, well, it's the emissions. Well, if it's the emissions, let's work on that technology. And if you talk to the industry, they already are. I mean, natural gas is so much cleaner today than it was a decade and 2 decades ago. And they're already working on renewable natural gas and other things that make it even cleaner. I mean, let's incent the industry to continue going down that path. Why shut down a resource that we've been blessed with in this nation to continue and grow energy dominance? If our concern is cleanliness, let's work and continue to invent and incent the innovation to make it cleaner. That's what we should be doing, not shutting it off. I mean, so one thing we have to understand to this point is there's always been this discussion of can renewables replace fossil fuels? The answer unequivocally is no. So when you build an energy grid, you don't build it based on how much energy you use over the course of the year. You build it on how much energy you need on the hottest of hot days and the coldest of cold days. And during peak hours. Peak hours in Virginia are 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. The sun's not up at its height at 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. And unless someone can tell me what the wind's going to do on February 27th, 2028, we need to have something that we can rely on. And that happens to be natural gas. There's a place for solar. There's a place for all the above. There's a place for everything. But let's understand, if we want to make sure our lights come on, we need to have dispatchable power. And right now, that is natural gas. And when I first took the job in Virginia, I used to say, well, we need to keep the lights on. Let's understand it's not about keeping the lights on. In Texas, when they had that winter storm, people died because people's heaters would not come on in their homes. And the elderly are the first to be affected. That's what this means if we get this wrong. So we shouldn't be fighting the one dispatchable power that literally was responsible for keeping our lights on this last storm that we had.
So to me, the view that natural gas is essential today gets at how the overall system is designed. And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but if that's true, what's the right way to create variability in not just the worst case scenarios, but all the time without overbuilding gas?
Well, I mean, look, so you want to have the variability. So Youngkin was always big on battery storage and energy storage. And that, I think, is going to be very important. And we see it under the Youngkin administration. On the way out the door, we funded a project in Rappahannock Electric Cooperative and helped them build a battery project where literally they were going to power the batteries up during the middle of the day when power was at least expensive because solar's plentiful in the middle of the day, right? And then they were going to draw down the battery during peak hours, 4 to 8 p.m., when electricity is most costly. There are innovative things we can do. Now, battery storage still has a lot of innovation to go through to really be where we like it to be and be that significant impact. But today, it can start to make the difference. And I think there are innovative solutions out there like that that we were using under the Youngkin administration that can continue to be a part of this growth.
And would you say, do you think, are we risking building infrastructure that could be harder to operate or politically harder to sustain, 20 years from now?
Politically harder to sustain?
Regardless of administration, because especially since this is something that sometimes falls along party lines.
You're right, and it shouldn't, honestly. I mean, look, one of the biggest natural gas states in the nation is Pennsylvania, Governor Josh Shapiro. You don't see Governor Shapiro shutting down natural gas? I mean, this shouldn't be partisan. It shouldn't be political. We need our lights to stay on. We need our AC to stay on, our heat to stay on. We need economic growth in Virginia. It shouldn't be partisan. We need all the above. There's a place for solar. There's a place for wind. There's a place for SMR and that growth. But one doesn't solve everything, and that's what people need to understand. You are not going to replace all fossil fuel consumption with renewables and think that you're going to have a reliable grid, or an affordable one, at that matter.
And since we're under, a new administration, and you were the head of the state's Department of Energy, during the transition period, did you offer the Spanberger administration recommendations? What work did you recommend they continue or prioritize?
So the transition team I was asked to meet with was an amazing transition team. I knew them before, great people. They were coming in, they asked all the right questions, kind of where things are, and we did. And this administration has to make their decisions. They won the election, they have a right to govern and decide future policies. And one thing that I hope they lean into, and we saw bills already during the legislature, but Governor Spanberger has not weighed in on a lot of things yet, is I hope they look at the Virginia Clean Economy Act. I mean, when the State Corporation Commission staff, in testimony, says that they cannot reconcile affordability and the Virginia Clean Economy mandates, if that doesn't send up fire alarms, nothing does. I mean, when I was head of the department, we modeled many different ways the Virginia Clean Economy Act, trying to see, can we keep the lights on and adhere to the mandates? And the answer is no. And the one technical model that's come about was forced to be created using unicorns and fairy dust that cannot stand up to any type of discussion. It doesn't exist, and it can know, if when the SEC staff comes out and says, we have a reconciliation problem with affordability and these mandates, that should send a storm through the administration saying, we need to create some changes. And I will give my Democrat colleagues credit. I didn't like the bill and vote for it in 2020, but in 2020, we thought there was a 1 to 2% energy year-over-year growth. It's over 6.5% now. That bill was not created for what we're seeing today.
And as you're thinking of this, where do you think lawmakers right now in this current session are getting it right? And where would you say that maybe they're not hitting the mark?
They're getting it right with conversations behind closed doors. Having been elected to office for 15 years, 10 in the General Assembly, there's a difference between the speeches given on the floor of the House of Delegates and the conversations behind closed doors. There are the right conversations going on. I don't know if those conversations will ever become the conversations on the floor and turn into legislation that actually lowers the bills. I mean, if we want to lower the bills for consumers in Virginia overnight, literally overnight, starting this September, all we have to do, not go into RGGI, and basically allow existing nuclear to be in the numerator of the RPS, because that would stop us from making Dominion buy basically between $3 and $5 billion of renewable energy credits, all of which will get passed on to the consumer over the next 10 years. So literally, this administration could lower bills significantly by a simple administrative change.
And one last question to end it all for now. If a year from now, what should Virginians look at to decide whether this administration's energy policy is actually working? What's the metric?
Look at their bill. Look at their bill. Ask why did when your bills go up again this September, because unless they change the Virginia Clean Economy Act, your bill's going to go up again this September to buy digital credits called RECs, which longer story we can debate later. But look at your bill and ask why they go up. And that's what you should be. That's what every Virginian should be modeling it by. Are your bills going up, and why are they going up? And if it's just fuel costs going up, look, we all know what inflation means, right? But if it's going up because of other things, because of what you see these riders on your bill, then call your legislator. But don't blame your utility company for your bills going up, because it's not their fault. I can tell you, having been in the legislature, utilities do what they're told to do by the General Assembly. And when they're told to build stuff or go buy digital certificates to make people feel better, they have to go do it, and it shows up in your bills.
Well, Glenn, thank you so much for joining us today. That's unfortunately all the time that we have for this segment. But just thank you so much for the conversation.
I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.